Hello, my name is Bree and I'd like to welcome you to my channel, Breezy Banter, the place where I talk about the things I want to talk about. In today's video, I thought it would be fun to share with you the skincare and makeup that I brought with me on my current trip. I'm just over 2 months into a just over 3-month long trip. And at this point, I think I have some fairly good data into the products that I've actually used thus far on my trip, and I thought it would just be fun to talk about that. So I have everything that I've brought laid out in front of me, and what I'm going to do is I'll go category by category. I'll show you the products that I brought with me, and then I'll talk about whether or not I've used them so far, whether or not I think I will use them so far, why I brought it, and whether I would bring it again. One of the things that I think is really interesting in the beauty community is I watch a lot of beauty YouTube, and so often when people talk about new makeup releases, they'll talk about, oh, this would be great for traveling. This would be great for traveling. And yes, a lot of people do at least some form of traveling, whether it's an overnight trip or perhaps a longer trip like the one I'm currently doing. But I think what people bring on trips versus what they say would be good for traveling are often two very different things. And even more so, I think people are perhaps more hopeful in terms of what they think that they might do on a vacation versus what they actually do. And I say that without any judgment. Like, I'm making a makeup video right now for YouTube and I'm not even wearing any makeup, so I recognize that there are just times when you might not want to put on makeup. A vacation or a trip is very potentially one of those times, so like, I get it. I just think it's interesting to look into our habits. So with all of that said, let's get started. As I mentioned, I have everything laid out in front of me, so I'm just gonna like reach forward and pull it all. What I'll probably do first is let's start with skincare. So I have this Clean and Clear Persagel 5% benzoyl peroxide acne treatment. This is just a very old bottle. Unfortunately, I'm getting some glare. I have used this, and virtually always, I want to have something like this on hand. I don't suffer from breakouts that often, but when I do, using something like this I often find that it makes a difference in my skin, so I like to have it on hand. It can take a blemish or a pimple of some sort from like a 7-day healing time down to like 1 or 2 days. So I just would prefer that, and it's easy enough to bring. I'll also just very briefly mention I got henna done on my hand over the weekend. So if you see something like on my hand and it's not clear what it is, that's what it is. Next, I have the Supergoop Mineral Matte Screen SPF 40, and I have in fact used this. Of course, I'm sorry, when I do this, it's probably not going to look that great just because of the setup that I have. I'm not in a position now to be able to fix it, but I actually really like this sunscreen. I find that the usability of a sunscreen has a, unfortunately, big impact on whether or not I'll actually apply sunscreen, and I like this one. I think it goes on well. It doesn't have a smell. It doesn't leave a cast on my skin, at least, and it plays well with makeup. So this is just really easy to use, and I'm glad I brought it. Next, I have the Clinique Take the Day Off Cleansing Balm. So this was a sample that I've had for quite a while. I actually had another cleanser that I had brought. It was like the Tatcha, one of, if not the only Tatcha cleansers that you can buy at Sephora. I think it was like one of the free birthday gifts, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, but I had finished that one, and I had expected that I would finish it during this trip, so I had this Clinique one at home, and I decided to bring it with me, and I'm glad I did, because I just opened this, I think maybe 3 days ago now, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I like it much more than the Tatcha one. I find that the Tatcha one, I think if I almost always wear waterproof mascara, and I think aside from waterproof mascara, the Tatcha one was fine. It was average. Certainly does not come at an average price tag though. But with this, with the Clinique cleansing balm, I find that it is actually like a solid cleanser. It's funny because I was using the Tatcha one for so long that I wasn't necessarily like the happiest with how it took off my makeup. And after you use a product for so long, you might start thinking like, oh, this is just how all cleansers are. And then when I opened this one, I was like, no, this is how cleansers can be. So very glad that I brought this. As I said, I've started using it. So next I have the Purity Mattifying Moisturizer. I'm sorry, there's sirens outside. I hope everyone's okay, but I also don't know when they will stop. So I love this moisturizer. As the name suggests, it mattifies. As someone who has normal leaning oily skin, I find that this actually does mattify my skin. So often when I'm looking for a moisturizer, I want it to just like lightly hydrate. But if it does do something like mattify, that's perfect for me. So I really enjoyed this one. It's not clear to me if they're going to continue selling it, because if I recall, when I was originally thinking of buying this, I think it had been out of stock or something for a really long time, and it eventually came back in stock and I bought it, but I'm unsure now if it's still available. I do have some other moisturizers that I like. I particularly enjoy the Clinique, I think it's called Dramatically Different Moisturizing Gel, something like that. They have like the moisturizing gel and the moisturizing lotion. I like the gel one just for oily-ish skin. So I suspect that might be one that I go back to, but this is a pretty solid moisturizer. Happy with it. Next, I'm gonna go into lip nourishing products. So the first thing that I have here is the Too Faced Hangover Pillow Balm Lip Treatment in the shade Flavor Banana Kiss. I love this product. I mentioned before in one of my other videos that this is a lightly nourishing, easy to wear, easy on the lips treatment, I suppose. So there's a difference between like dry lips and normal lips, and I'm sure many other people experience what I've experienced, which is lips can be kind of, you can feel that they're getting dry before they're actually like in a dry state. And I find that if I put this on when they're kind of in that semi-dry state, it thwarts them becoming like actually dry. I also really like it for travel, because again, when I'm like, if I'm on an airplane, for example, that can just wreak havoc on the skin and the dryness of it. And I find that this just works great for that situation. Putting it on like before I get on a plane helps quite a bit. And very occasionally I'll wear it at night. If I do need something really nourishing, this I don't think cuts it, but for the purpose that I described, I think it's a great product. Next, I have the L'Oreal Color Riche Plump and Shine in the color Guava Plump. This is supposed to be, I believe it's supposed to be a dupe of the YSL Volupte Lip Shine or whatever they're called, which I have used in the past, and they're actually quite nice. I think they're too expensive for what they are, but this one, it's just a very similar like packaging and what it purports to do. And this one is actually quite old, so I'm just smelling it now. It has like a very faint, maybe vanilla smell. I'm not sure if that's quite vanilla, but I am aware of how old this one is. I think I got it back in like 2018, so don't judge me too harshly for that. Doesn't smell bad, doesn't look bad, so I will continue to use it. I have not yet used it on this trip. I put it next to my bed, and I just assumed I would like put it on before bed, and I just haven't been doing that, to be frank. So I don't regret bringing this, but I think I also just brought too many lip products, to be completely honest. Next, I have the Grown Alchemist Lip Balm in Vanilla Watermelon. And I'm pretty sure they also stopped selling this at Sephora, or at least Sephora Canada. And I like this. I would say it's less nourishing and also less easy to use than the Too Faced lip treatment. But this is perfectly serviceable. I usually keep this in my bag. And so when I'm out and about, this is often the one that I will use. It seems like when I'm traveling, I tend to use the Too Faced one, whereas if I'm just living like my normal life, I tend to use this one. And I have not yet used that one on this trip. Next is the Laneige Sleeping Care Lip Sleeping Mask in Vanilla. I've also had this one for quite a few years. I always have this like image of myself putting this on before I go to bed. Again, it's also next to my nightstand, and I just don't do that. But like, it smells fine, and the last time I used it, it worked fine, so I don't see any reason to get rid of it at this point in time. But I am cognizant of its age, and I really just need to use it up. And I have not yet used this one on this trip. So I should have said this when I was doing the skincare group, but I've used all of the skincare that I've brought, and I used one of the 4 lip treatments that I brought. I should have brought 2 of them, to be honest. I should have brought the Too Faced one and the Laneige one, because I think the Laneige one is better for like long-term nourishment. I also just haven't really struggled with dry lips during this trip, so I think that's part of it as well. Next, I'll discuss hair treatments. So since my time here, I've gone through 2 other hair treatments. I can't remember now off the top of my head what they were. One was a Tresemme one, and then there was one that I had gotten from Sephora. That was the one that I was using when I first started my trip, and it was like almost done at the time, and so I completed it. Then I used the Tresemme one. Even though it was a good price, it just didn't seem to do much and didn't really like nourish my hair. If anything, it actually felt drier. And so here I have the Moroccanoil treatment for all hair types. I have bought the for blonde hair one in the past. I don't really feel like there's much of a difference, but I only got this is a 25 ml container, and I'm probably, I would say, more than halfway through it. I do plan on buying the Chi Silk Infusion treatment, I believe it's called, as part of the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty sale, because I have used that one, though quite a long time ago, I have a very distinct memory of it, but it was back in 2014, and I remember really liking it. But I think at the time I had used it up, I went to rebuy it, and I really struggled to find a place in Canada where I could do so. For some reason, I seem to think like maybe Costco was like the one place, but I don't have a membership to Costco, so I couldn't buy it. And that's when I started venturing out into other hair oil products. So I've since gone through quite a few since that point in time. I have used the Moroccanoil treatment in the past, and it is one of my favorites, but I do enjoy trying new things and just kind of switching up my routine every once in a while. So once this one is done, I'll go back to the Chi. Once the Chi one is done, I don't know what I will do, but I use this Moroccanoil every day. Next, I'll talk about foundation products, and by foundation I mean anything that is meant to I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Like basically anything that includes tinted moisturizers, BB creams, CC creams, concealer, etc. So the first one that I have here is by NYX. It's the Bear With Me Tinted Skin Veil in the color Natural Soft Beige, and I have not used this trip. There's definitely something in me that feels like when I use foundation, and again I'm using that word in a broad sense, this is a tinted skin veil. If I do that, that means it's a full makeup day, and I don't often do full makeup days. It's not uncommon for me to do like some makeup, but I certainly don't do like full glam or anything like that, or at least not what I would consider to be full glam. And I just haven't used this because I haven't had an experience so far where it felt like full glam was really necessary. I also think my skin has been, generally speaking, pretty good this trip, so I haven't needed a lot of coverage over large parts of my face. Like I've had blemishes, but the concealer that I'm about to talk about has done me just fine for dealing with that. That said, I don't regret bringing this one because I could easily see situations that could have arose over the past 2 months or in the upcoming month, for which having that, I would be glad to have that. Next, I have the e.l.f. 16-Hour Camo Concealer in the shade Light Beige, and I quite like this. I only have one concealer ever going at a time, or at least that's historically been true for the past like 15 years. I have used this. If I have a blemish, I use it. I'd say probably several times a week. I tend to use this. I think it's a solid pick for a concealer. Next, I'll talk about the beauty tools that I brought with me. So I did bring a pair of nail clippers and tweezers, which I didn't bring out here, but I have used those. I use those quite regularly. Brought an eyelash curler. I think it doesn't actually have a name on it, but I think it's from Revlon if I'm not mistaken, and I have used it. Brought a beauty blender, which I have used. I brought this large blush that I often use. I almost always use this for blush. Very occasionally I'll use it for highlight. This is part of I got this several years ago. It's part of the Sephora collection. It was like a mini set. I think it was like a holiday mini set. And to me, like, this isn't a mini. This like is the perfect size for a brush like this, but I like it quite a bit. And next, similarly, I think this came from the same kit. Again, Sephora collection. I don't think there's nothing more specific than Sephora collection. This is just an eyeshadow brush. I have not used this yet this trip, largely because, as you will see, all of the eyeshadows that I brought, I've applied with my finger. I think I was just thinking, just in case, either I buy something for which I want to use this, or if I did end up wanting to apply one of the eyeshadows using this brush, that's why I brought it. Don't regret it. I mean, it's small enough and doesn't weigh anything, so perfectly happy to have that with me. Next, I'll talk about mascara. So I recently started the e.l.f. Lash It Loud Mascara Waterproof Volumizing Mascara. Looks like this. I opened this up a couple days ago because the one that I was previously using, which was the I Heart Extreme Volume Mascara by Essence in waterproof, it was a waterproof version. I knew that during this trip that mascara would expire, and it finally got to the point where I was like, yeah, I think I need to open a new one. I tend to wear mascaras for about 6 months before I switch it out, unless I have reason to do so in advance of that 6-month mark, like if it smells off or if it's just not performing the way it should. I don't think I've had that happen out of all of the mascaras that I've tried, but because I was expecting that mascara to expire during this trip, I brought this other one with me, and so far I've been quite liking it. I have used it, and it is volumizing, to be sure. I've only used it for like 2 or 3 days at this point, but liking it so far. Next, I'll talk about eyeliners. So these I actually bought on this trip, which is pretty rare. I don't often buy makeup while on a trip. However, because I'm in the US and you can get ColourPop at Ulta, I decided to go for these because I've been wanting these for such a long time. Getting ColourPop in Canada it can be a bit of a hassle. I think I've ordered from ColourPop maybe 2 or 3 times in the past, and while I haven't experienced any issues, I know people who have, and customer service has been hit or miss. And just once you factor in like the exchange rate and shipping, ColourPop becomes far less of a deal than it is in the US. So I just went into an Ulta one day, and I had planned on purchasing these in advance of me actually doing so it wasn't like an impulse purchase or anything. But these are both the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner. It says they're waterproof. I haven't tested that theory, but I got the color Movie Star, which is like a, let me take it out of its container. I have a thing where for whatever reason, I don't like throwing out containers. It's like a orange to yellow duochrome, I suppose, maybe multi-chrome eyeliner, and I have worn this. I quite like it. And then I also got the same product in the color Wild Idea. And this one is like a green, blue, maybe yellow, again, duochrome, multi-chrome eyeliner. And I have worn this one, and similarly, I quite like it. Next, let's move into lip products. So I brought 5. And I've worn one of them. And it's so funny because before this trip, I was trying really hard to limit the number of lip products that I brought. And I was like, 5 seems reasonable. I'll feel like I have options without being overwhelmed. And I feel like I almost always overpack lip products, and I don't quite know why. I suspect what's happening is situations for which I would want to wear like a bright, bold lip, which is my preference when it comes to lip colors, are also situations that often involve drinking and or eating. And there's just like this part of my brain that's like, well, even though the products that I'll show you are ones that stay on my lips quite well, there's just a part of my brain that's like, do you really want to put that lip product on just to know that it's gonna get like mucked around with the food that you eat? And that like prevents me from wearing it. There's nothing stopping me from wearing it like day to day other than me just choosing not to. All of that to say, I am glad that I brought the number that I did. I probably would have been happier if I had brought maybe 3 instead of 5. I suspect I will wear at least one of these, if not 2 or 3 of them, before the end of this trip. So the first one that I have here is the Revlon Color Stay Satin Ink in the color Fire and Ice. This is like a very, I don't think you'll be able to see that color that well. This is like a very bold, I would say almost like a neon coral color. And as I said, I haven't worn it yet. Next, I have the Urban Decay liquid lip color in the shade X Lover. This one, I find that the Urban Decay, like this container color, actually doesn't really represent the inside color all that well. This is kind of like a burnt orange or a bricky red color, and I love this formula, but similarly to the other one, haven't worn it yet. Next, I have the House Labs. I think these are called, yeah, the Atomic Shake Lip Lacquer in the color Red Coral Shine. I was very hesitant to purchase this when I did probably like a year ago or so, because the reviews on them, either people love them or they like hate them. And I saw quite a few videos, I saw quite a few videos of people applying this and it like just not looking good. But then I saw some other videos of people applying it and it looking fantastic. And so it's quite torn on what to do. That said, what I noticed in the videos where people had applied it and it looked good was that it seemed very similar in formula to the other ones that I've shown you and will show you. And that made me think that it is the type of formula that would work well with my lips. And I also noticed that on like the instructions, it's very clear that you have to keep your lips separated and like let them dry for, I can't remember now, but it's like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. And I find that if you do that, perhaps even longer than that minute, like if it says a minute, do it for like 2 minutes. If it says 2 minutes, do it for like 3 minutes. Just make sure it's like completely dry, and then this stays on. And I like it. I just haven't used it thus far this trip. Next I have the Maybelline Super Stay Vinyl Ink in the color Unrivaled. I love this one. Again, the lighting isn't really doing this justice. This is like a dark red. It's almost like a plummy type color, or like a plum red type color, and I love this one. Still haven't worn it yet this trip. And next, also by Maybelline Super Stay Vinyl Ink, is the color Red Hot. And this one is probably the most kind of classic red that I brought with me, even though it almost looks orange in this lighting. But again, I love this color, but I haven't worn it yet this trip. Next, let's talk cheek products. So I brought with me different cheek products, 6 depending on how you want to count them. But of course, I brought my Clinique Cheek Pop in the color Pansy Pop. I've talked ad nauseum about this blush on my channel. I love purple blush. I've been on the hunt for a purple blush. I kind of want a cream one, but this one is the one that's preventing me from doing that because I know that I have a blush at home. And I have worn this so far in this trip. Next I have the, I can't remember what, it's not on here. It's the e.l.f. like duo blush and highlighter. This is in the shade Watermelon. I'm pretty sure I looked this up recently and I don't think they sell it anymore. But this color up top is a blush, and this color down here is a highlighter. I've used both so far this trip. To me, this is like the easiest day-to-day blush. It gives the softest amount of color. It's easy to use. The highlighter is like gentle and soft, but it's not shimmery, and it's not like, some people might want a blinding highlight. That's perfectly fine. That's not what this is going to give you. It's just going to give you like a nice soft shine. And so quite like this product, and I have used it so far this trip. Next I have the ColourPop Super Shock Cheek in the color Drop of the Hat. You can see I have a decent amount of pan on this, and I've had this product for quite a while. I do like this one. It is which I don't always like shiny things on my face. It is a pearlized finish, and I don't always like shiny finishes on my cheek. I tend to enjoy it more if it's very subtle, and this is probably as unsubtle as I would like to go in a product. I do like it. I just find I have to be careful when applying it because it can be quite a lot on my skin. And I have used it so far this trip. Next, I have the ColourPop Super Shock Cheek highlighter in the shade On the Cusp. Looks like this. And I don't think I've used it so far this trip. If I have, I've used it once. It's really nice highlighter. It's just that it is a bit more in your face than the e.l.f. one. And so often if I'm looking for a highlighter, I tend to go for the e.l.f. one. Absolutely nothing wrong with this. I have used it, not so far this trip, but like I've used it quite a bunch at home. I don't regret having it. If I do have like let's say like a big night out, it wouldn't surprise me if I did end up reaching for this. And lastly, I have the Tarte Man Eater Blush and Glow Cheek Plump in the shade Peachy Pink. At the time that I bought this, I think they only had like 3 or 4 colors, and they've since come out with more. I'm actually surprised that this hasn't been like as big of a hit as I think it should be. I really enjoy this product, and I have used it so far this trip. It's what I use my beauty blender when I'm applying it. And I just think that this is, as someone who doesn't like blinding highlights, but does enjoy cheek color and like a subtle shine, to me this like does exactly that. And I find, depending on how you apply it, I have applied it with my fingers, works perfectly well. I've applied it with a brush, works perfectly well. I've applied it with a beauty blender, works perfectly well. And you can layer it up to get more of a color, more of a shine. I just find it's super easy to work with. And I think the shades that they have are beautiful. I do wish the shade range was expanded. If I recall, most of the colors are like typical blush colors, like pink. I think they have some brown ones, but I would like some more like red and or orange shades. But I think this is just like a lovely product. The only thing that prevents me from using it more is the fact that it's liquid, and so there's just some extra work that has to be done to use it, but I love it every time that I do use it, and I have used it so far this trip. Lastly, let's talk about eyeshadow. So what I've done is I brought a collection of single eyeshadows, and I'll show that in a minute. But the other single eyeshadow that I brought was the Hourglass Scattered Light Glitter Eyeshadow in the shade Reflect. I guess I'll open this up so you can get a better sense of what it looks like if it wants to. That's how it is. This is like the easiest. It's a shiny brown, like kind of light brown color. If I want something just a little extra, a little nice, I enjoy very much using something like this. It gives the way that I apply it, it gives a very nice shine with a little bit of color, but it's not overwhelming. You could wear it day to day. I also think you could wear it like for date night, for example. I think it's a really nice product. I've had to stop myself a few times from purchasing more of these because I think they are just super nice. That said, I think they're very expensive for what they are, and I don't really like Hourglass as a company. I bought this many years ago, and at this point I just don't foresee myself buying more Hourglass products. That said, I think it's L'Oreal that has like a dupe to this, and I bought one in a similar, though not like dupe color. Although I do prefer the formula / texture of this one just a little bit more. The L'Oreal one that I do have is like, it's nice. And I think if you don't want to support Hourglass, or you don't want to pay the amount of money that this is, I think this was like 42 Canadian, maybe it's 32, but it's like, it was more than $30 in Canadian dollars. Those L'Oreal ones are good. I'd vouch for them. The only difference that I notice is the actual texture itself when applying. I find that this tends to be a little bit more smooth and slightly easier to work with, but again, the L'Oreal ones are perfectly workable. So last I have this Makeup Forever Empty Magnetic palette, for which I put 8 Clionadh shadows in. I'm not going to take them out all right now, but I'll try to show you kind of what they look like. You can see I picked what I would consider to be more neutral colors. Well, frankly, I would consider almost all of these to be neutral. Perhaps the only exception is this one in this corner, which happens to be my favorite eyeshadow of all time. I know it's the shade Ochre, and I love green and orange. I love green eyeshadow. I love like murky green eyeshadow, and I think the flip on this is just exactly what I wanted. And I think it pairs really well with the ColourPop eyeliner that I mentioned earlier. But I love these shades. They're really like, most of them either have pink or brown as sort of a major component within them. Seems like there's maybe 3 here that have more of a cooler tone, like blue purple leaning, without being exclusively blue and purple. I'm not sure the best way to describe this, but I love my Clionadh singles. Like, I cannot sing their praises enough. If you enjoy multi-chromes, duochromes, sparkly eyeshadow of any sort, I 100% recommend Clionadh. I've tried several other brands like Divina, Terra Moons, Give Me Glow, etc. And while I think all of those are good formulas, I think Clionadh is the best. If anyone does want me to list the shade names of these, just let me know. I'll pull them out. It's just a bit difficult to do right here sitting down like this. I haven't used all 8 of these shadows, but I know I've used Ochre. I think I've used at least 3 of these, maybe 4, though I know I haven't used all 8. So that's the summary of all of the products that I've brought with me, or in the case of the 2 eyeliners, bought during this trip. So counting up all of the products that I have here, there are 30, assuming that I count this magnetic eyeshadow palette as one, including my tools like brushes, and counting this e.l.f. highlighter blush duo as one product. I have 30 products, and I've used 21 of those 30, so I haven't used 9 products. What I think is most interesting is 8 of those 9 products are lip products. So there are 3 lip treatments that I didn't use, and then 5 liquid lipsticks is perhaps the best way to describe it, that I didn't use. So that's interesting. That's really good for me to know that I tend to overpack when it comes to lip products. It seems like the only other product that I didn't use was this highlighter from ColourPop. I still expect that there's a decent chance that I will use it before the end of this trip. Maybe what would be fun to do is to try to use all of the products that I haven't used so far on this trip before the end of it. Like, it shouldn't be too hard. The lip products I can put on before I go to bed at night. The 5 lip colors, it'll just take 5 different days to go through those, and the cheek product, that's no difficulty at all. So I might try to do that. I also think it's just really good for me to know because I have, for example, eyeshadow palettes at home. I didn't bring any eyeshadow palettes with me, but I also haven't missed not having them. There have been times where I've thought about them. In particular, I have I think it's called the Blitz Astral Quad by Pat McGrath that I've thought about a few times. And I have the BH Lost in Los Angeles, like the pastel palette. I've thought about those 2 a few times. Also my 2 Natasha Denona palettes. So I guess I've thought about 4, but I haven't missed them. I haven't been like upset that I didn't have them with me. More just oh, if I had those, I probably would have used them today sort of feeling. When it comes to lip colors and my other blush products, I haven't felt that way. The only other item I can think of that I have thought about is I have a Bobbi Brown highlighter, and I can't remember what made me think of it, but I did. And I don't know, I wish I'd brought it. I think like I brought 2 highlighters, although I do really have 4 shiny cheek products, including like the shiny blushes that I have. So I don't think I needed it. It's just something that I thought about during this trip. I think once I do return home, I'll be excited to have like more of my eyeshadow singles, be able to dip back into my palettes. But I am really happy with what I've used so far. And like I said, I've used roughly 2/3 of what I brought. It's hard to regret really bringing a lip balm that I didn't use, you know? So I don't want to be too hard on myself either, but I think going forward in future trips, this is definitely something that I'll keep in mind. I think that's it for me today. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Do you find when you pack your makeup and skincare for travel that you tend to underpack, overpack, or do you tend to do it just right? And have you ever evaluated the makeup that you've used after you've returned home from a trip? I'd be very curious to know what others experience, because I get the sense that a lot of people take a lot of makeup on a trip with an idea of using a lot of it, and then they don't end up doing so, which again, I completely understand. But I'd love to know if my hunch is actually correct. So let me know, what's your experience been like? With all of that said, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to do more than that, I'll have a few links in the description that you can use to support me further. And before I go, I'd like to take a minute to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. Bye.